What's up everyone? So we're back with another video. Today we've got another video in our quick fix series. I picked this guy up on Marketplace today and I believe it's a 87 if I'm not mistaken, but it's a Kawasaki Bayou 185 and it looks to be all original and in pretty good shape. I mean, all the plastics are intact, they're not broken, and it doesn't look like it's missing any parts. The only thing, it has, a couple tears in the seat, but we can definitely fix that. But I'm going to put something up on the screen so you guys can see. But I found this on Marketplace listed for $700, and the guy said that it had some issues and it wasn't running. And he said that he parked it a year ago, and when he parked it, it was running. But after sitting there for about a year, he went out and it wouldn't start back. But the only thing major with it is this gas tank right here. It has a big hole and a crack in it, and it's just leaking gas. So if I had to guess, this thing's just been empty of gas, and I put some in there just to see how bad the leak was. But I'm thinking that if we fix that leak and maybe take a look at the carburetor, I think this thing will start up and we won't have to do any major repairs to it. So we're going to dig into that a little bit, but first let's go ahead and wash this thing and then we'll get it inside and dig into it. All right guys, before we start washing this thing, we're going to go ahead and spray it down with our cleaner, take care of that, and then we'll go ahead and pressure wash everything off. All right guys, so now that we got this whole thing washed off, the first thing I want to do is we want to check this oil. And as you can tell, there's a window here and it does have oil in it, but we're just gonna drop a zip tie in there and see what the color looks like before we do anything else. So let's pop that open and check that out. All right, so if you look on there, the oil doesn't look that old. It's got a brownish color to it. So I think our oil should be okay for now, and it's definitely got oil in there since I can see it. So we're gonna roll with that for now. And next thing I wanna do is we wanna check this thing for spark. All right guys, so next thing, I wanna check this thing for spark. So let's pop this spark plug out real fast. So there's our spark plug. As you can see, spark plug looks pretty good on the end. So let's pop it in there and see if it does have spark. So now that we know this thing's got spark, the next thing that we need to do is try to seal up this crack. That way the tank doesn't leak anymore. But since I've already put some gas in there and it's not leaking at the moment, why don't we just go ahead and see if this thing turns over? Because like I said, I think this thing was just empty, and with all the other good signs that we have, I think this thing might actually crank up. So let's test that out before we go digging into the carb. All right, guys, let's try to fire this thing up and see if she'll run. Let's check for lights here. On, let's see. All right, so we do have lights, and I know we've got power because we've already checked the starter. So let's choke this thing and see what happens here. Guys, this thing literally fired up with no work. Let's see if it'll run without this choke. Come on, guys. It don't get no easier than that. I mean, seriously. This thing was literally out of gas, and the guy had no clue and, couldn't get it started. And this thing runs, this thing idles perfect. Hadn't run in a year, and I've done literally nothing to it. Let's see what happens when we throttle this thing up. Let's see if it smokes at all. Oh, it cut off on me. I wonder if it's out of gas now. Doesn't smoke at all, but it is cutting out some. So it's either one, low on gas again, or we need to still dig into that carb, which we're going to do. But that's crazy that this thing just fired up and it was just low on gas this whole time. So we're going to dig into that carb more, but so far it sounds great. And I can't complain for 400 bucks, which is what I got this thing for. So let's dig into that carb, change this seat, and then I think that's all we got to do to this one. So let's get started with that. All right, guys, first we're gonna pop this seat off. And then if you look down in here, our carb is pretty accessible for the most part. Let's go ahead and pop this off, get that in the ultrasonic cleaner and clean out those jets. And then we'll take a look at this air filter as well. All right, guys, super quick to get that guy off, and that is a Mikuni, so that is the original carb, which is what we like to see. Let's go ahead and tear this thing down, and we will take a look at the jets and get this thing all cleaned up. All right, guys, let's go ahead and break this carb down, and we'll see what these jets look like. All right, so it actually doesn't look too bad in there. We'll see if this pilot jet is clogged a little bit, but so far it doesn't look too dirty in there. But let's pop these jets out and take a look at those. All right, here's our pilot jet. Let's see, that's a 22.5, and let's take a look and see if this thing's clogged. So it did have a little bit of debris in there. You can't really see down in there, but we're gonna blow that out with compressed air, run that through the cleaner, and we'll see if that fixes our problem. Also, we're gonna spray all these holes and everything out with compressed air and make sure that this thing's good and flushed out with carb cleaner. So let's do that real fast. All right, so the next thing we want to do is add our parts to this parts cleaner and let that sit for a little while. So let's add those in and start that up. All right, guys, while we're waiting on those parts to get cleaned by the ultrasonic cleaner, let's go ahead and pop this lid off and we'll take a look at this air filter. All right, guys, so I'm having some trouble getting this last screw off, and I don't have the right tool to get that off, and I don't want to break it. So if you just look underneath here, you can see that that air filter for the most part is pretty clean, and you know that's got a bit of life left. So we'll just leave that like it is, and we'll screw this back in and move on to the next thing. All right, guys, so the last thing I want to do before we put that car back together and reinstall the parts is take care of this tank. Like I said before, it does have a crack running through here and it has this hole. So we're gonna try to patch that up. Like I said in the past, I'm no professional, but this is a cheap quad and I've used this stuff in the past. It seems to work pretty well. This is just JB Weld, and this is the water epoxy version. This stuff is good for gasoline, diesel, anything that has to deal with any kind of liquids. This is the one that I like to use. So we'll go ahead and try to clean this surface off a little bit, and we'll install this JB Weld, let that sit, and that tank should be good to go. All right, guys, so as you can tell, we sanded that surface up a little bit. That way we can add our JB Weld. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, guys, so we're gonna let that sit. I made sure to put it on there real thick where I thought the crack was, so that way I made sure it's sealed. Once that's finished drying, we'll go ahead and sand this down. That way it smooths it out, and then we'll paint over it, and you probably won't even tell that it's there. So we'll wait for that, and once it's done, we'll come back to it and finish it up. All right, guys, so as you can tell, just as an update, we did get that sand it down and paint it back over. That way it looks a little bit more uniform. So we'll let that dry and we'll move back to putting our carb together. That way we can get that reinstalled. All right guys, now that all of our parts are clean, let's go ahead and put this carb back together and we'll pop it back on the bike.
We had posted it. Yeah, late last night.
All right guys, we got our carb reinstalled. So let's see if it'll fire up and run like we want it to. Seems to be idling well. It's not cutting out anymore, and that gas tank doesn't look like it's leaking anymore either, which is good. So I think we got that fixed. So now that we've taken care of all the mechanical issues, I just want to finish up with a few cosmetic things before we take this thing for a final ride. I'm still waiting on the seat cover to come in, which will be in later today. So we'll do that last. But first, let's go ahead and I'm going to use a torch and we're going to hit these plastics and just try to shine it up a little bit better. So let's do that. All right guys, so our new seat cover came in. So let's go ahead and pop off this old cover and then we'll put on the new one. All right guys, we got our old seat cover off. So let's go ahead and start getting our new one on and get that one installed. All right guys, so we got our first few staples in there to kind of put it in place where we want it. Let's go ahead and finish tacking this thing down and it should be good to go. All right, guys, so this is our final product. We got the seat cover put on, and I think it turned out pretty well. This seat cover was actually for the 220 Bayou, but I think it fit just fine. We made it work. So let's go ahead and throw this on, and we'll take this thing for a test drive. All right, guys, so this is our final product. We're going to start this up, let you hear it run, and then we're going to test drive it. It's very quiet. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this video. I appreciate you guys watching. We had to cut it a little short. It's starting to rain outside, but this has been a fun, quick little build. And if you guys have any future ideas, or if you have any comments about this video, just drop that down below. And I appreciate you guys' support so far, but if you like the content, just feel free to subscribe and like, and I'll have more content coming your way shortly. Thanks.